Dungeon Reaper. A light novel by Bloodmoss. Chapter 20. Descent into Madness. The moment Cain's boots hit the warped wooden floor of Cafe Afterlife, his fury ignited. He stormed through the hazy air, eyes locked on Edgar, or rather, Shenfeng, sitting calmly in his usual booth, sipping his pathetic, watered-down coffee like nothing had happened. "You smug son of a bitch." Cain lunged forward, fists clenched in furious rage. Before he could close the gap, Tobias stepped in, his broad frame blocking Cain like a wall. "Whoa, easy, Grim. Now's not the time to be stupid." Cain's teeth ground together, fury radiating off him. "Get out of my way, Tobias. I'm not dealing with Edgar's little, I'm smarter than everyone else games. We have a serious problem." Edgar remained seated, completely unbothered. He casually swirled the coffee in his cup, not even sparing Cain a glance. Temper. Maria smirked from her perch atop the counter, staring into her coffee as she spoke in a flat, deadpan voice. "Oh, pop him one, Cain. Knock that smug right off his smug face." The air snapped taut as the backroom door slammed open. Shaniqua strode out, her presence commanding instant attention. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, and the temperature seemed to drop. "Silence," she barked, and the room froze. She glared at each of them in turn. "We have an emergency situation here, and I need a breakdown now. Who knows what the fuck is going on?" Edgar calmly set his mug down, adjusting his glasses. "If I may, my technical analysis of Takuma Hoshizawa's mental abilities work primarily from aura man-up." Shaniqua's glare sharpened as she cut him off. "Give me the down and dirty version. Now." Edgar sighed and gave a slight nod. "Our boy Cain here decided to fast-track his martial arts training. Formed a mental link with his black belt buddy, and now we have a mortal, touched by death, psychotic and running wild in the streets." Shaniqua pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed heavily. "Cain, do you remember that whole conversation we had about human minds not being able to comprehend the true powers that rule the universe?" Cain let out a long breath, shoulders slumping. "Yeah, I remember." Shaniqua's eyes swept the room. "All right, Nathaniel, you're not ready. Go back to whatever it is you do. Wait for Cain to finally show up and take you on a run. Until then, try to fit in with your new team. Maria, we have no clue how this is going to affect Hoshizawa's Class B status. He might drop, or he might get stronger. I need you to head to his last known location. Tobias, you're going too. Since it's Reaper power he's using, we're probably immune, but he's still a martial arts expert. We'll need all hands on deck." She turned slowly to Edgar. "And you. Did he pass?" Edgar regarded Cain for a long moment. "We were almost to the good part. I didn't even get to bleed him, but honestly, I don't think he would have cracked. I'll give him a pass." Cain's brow furrowed, and he looked directly at Shaniqua. "Bleed me? Bleed me. You were going to just let him do that." Tobias, still holding Cain back, but now with a loosened grip, paled a little. "It is very unpleasant." Cain's anger returned, but now with no single direction. "So that was what? A loyalty test?" Maria rolled her eyes. "You didn't get the full treatment? Damn, you're lucky. The guy beat the absolute shit out of me. All in good fun, though." Edgar smiled as if it was a fond memory, "And you never gave up the ghost." At that he tapped his coffee cup in the air towards her. Maria returned the gesture. "You are a special kind of psychopath, Edgar." Near the door, Nathaniel shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between them all. His mind imagining his near future. "Wait, who exactly is the other Edgar? You know, out there?" Maria smiled her knowing smile. "Sorry, sweetie, that's above your pay grade." Tobias rolled his shoulders, his usual stoicism intact. He shoved Cain just a little and let go. "Enough talk. We need to move. Now." Shaniqua's sharp gaze cut through them all. "Then let's mobilize. No more games. We're putting Hoshizawa down." The room fell into tense, focused silence as the Reapers moved to act. The VTOL rattled violently as it cut through the sky, engines groaning under the strain. Inside, Cain jolted awake, breath ragged, his head pounding like war drums. The sterile hum of the cockpit lights and the muted roar of the engines barely masked the tension in the air. Across from him, Shin sat with unnatural calm, dusting off his coat as if waking up mid-flight was perfectly normal. The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom, strained and confused. "Sir, we're almost at the hospital. You both looked like hell back there. I thought it was best to." "No." Shin's voice was steel, slicing through the cockpit noise. "Change course. Get us back to the last known location of the subject." The pilot hesitated. "Sir, you both need medical attention." I said now. Shin didn't raise his voice, but the air around him seemed to darken. Cain rubbed his temple, trying to steady his breathing. "You're definitely not off the hook for this, Shin." Shin Fong adjusted his glasses as if dismissing the comment. "We have much bigger concerns." The VTOL roared low over the jagged terrain, cutting through the ashen sky like a blade. Inside, Cain leaned forward, gripping the edge of his seat as the desolate landscape blurred beneath them. "Get us lower." Cain barked at the pilot, eyes narrowing. The pilot didn't argue. The VTOL dipped, engines whining as it skimmed dangerously close to the ground. Through the cockpit glass, the DRB checkpoint came into view, a fortress of mobile steel pillars and heavy stone barriers, bristling with armed guards. Beyond it, the Class D gate throbbed like a sickly heart, its yellow glow pulsing unnaturally. But it wasn't the gate that sent a chill down Cain's spine. It was the thing moving through the checkpoint. Cain leaned forward, eyes locked on the chaos unfolding below. His breath caught. Hoshizawa. At the DRB checkpoint, soldiers scrambled into position, weapons raised and nerves taut. The air around the gate felt heavier, denser, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Then it began. Open fire. The first hail of gunfire erupted in a deafening roar, muzzles flashing in rapid succession. Dozens of rounds screamed through the air, converging on the solitary figure moving steadily toward them. But none of the bullets found their mark. Mid-flight, the rounds veered off course, twisting unnaturally as if gripped by an invisible force. Some ricocheted harmlessly into the dirt, others flattened midair, crumpling like paper against an unseen wall. Dark tendrils slithered through the black haze around Hoshizawa, weaving and coiling like living shadows. They moved with unnatural precision, plucking bullets from the air and crushing them effortlessly. Others coiled outward, flicking away incoming fire as if brushing off dust. The few rounds that slipped past the writhing defense struck his form and simply bounced off, clattering uselessly to the ground. The soldiers hesitated, their assault faltering. Then came the breaking point. One guard's rifle slipped from his grasp as his entire body convulsed violently. His limbs snapped and twisted unnaturally, jerking like a puppet on tangled strings. His head lolled backward, eyes rolling up until only pale, lifeless orbs stared skyward. Without hesitation, he lunged for his weapon, movements sharp and mechanical. He spun on the soldier beside him and pulled the trigger. A thunderous burst of gunfire tore through the air, point blank. The bullets hammered into the other man's chest, relentless. The rounds struck in rapid succession, but the man barely flinched. Bullets flattened against his uniform, ricocheting off his skin with dull, metallic thuds. Like rain against steel. He staggered back a step, not from pain but from surprise, his face twisting into a snarl as he batted the rifle aside. Cain leaned forward in his seat, eyes narrowing. "Everyone is awakened these days." His tone was flat, more acknowledgement than surprise. He didn't tear his gaze away from the carnage below. Even a rank F has skin like Kevlar. So why bother firing? Shin didn't look up from adjusting his glasses. Whatever Hoshizawa's doing to them must be wiping out most of their higher functions. If their minds are compromised, instinct probably takes over. Point, shoot, repeat. From the cockpit, the pilot flicked a glance over his shoulder, his knuckles bone white on the controls. "Broad training habits are hard to break," the pilot muttered, voice tight. "Some of our boys down there can juice their rounds, explosives, acid, maybe even cursed shots. But that only works up close. Past that? Might as well be throwing rocks." Cain's jaw tightened, lips pressed into a thin line. Even the goblins from Scenario 4 can't be shot, so none of that is close to useful against him. The pilot swallowed hard and turned back to the controls. That's why I'm up here. No awakening. No suicidal heroics. I stay in the air where it's safe. Shin let out a quiet, disinterested hum. In other words, you're fragile. The pilot gave a half shrug, eyes locked on the path ahead. I consider it more like being natural. The Betrayal jolted as it dipped lower, engines howling in protest. Below, gunfire roared, pointless and desperate. Hoshizawa didn't even blink. Another soldier dropped to his knees, screaming as his fingers clawed into his own face, raking bloody furrows down his cheeks. His eyes bulged in terror, mouth moving in silent pleas as if something unseen was devouring him from within. All around the checkpoint, soldiers staggered and collapsed, weapons slipping from numb fingers. Some turned on each other, eyes glassy and unfocused, while others convulsed violently, their minds snapping under the pressure. Hoshizawa drifted forward through the carnage like a phantom. His presence alone was suffocating. Where once his aura flowed like a guiding current, now it lashed at the air in jagged, violent tendrils. It reached for the soldiers, curling around them like serpents, sinking into their minds, splintering them. Step by relentless step, whatever remained of the great Shirhan Takuma Hoshizawa pressed forward. The closer this creature got to the Class D gate, it began to pulse more and more erratically, its once stable yellow glow flickering and stuttering. Fragments of his voice drifted up to the Betrayal, as if amplified on the shifting air, fractured, muttering, broken. The cycle must end. Escape. Transcend. Cain's fists clenched, his breath ragged. This was no longer a man. This was something far worse. Get us down. Now. The Betrayal slammed down near the wreckage of the checkpoint, its landing skids screeching against fractured asphalt. The swirling downdraft kicked up a choking cloud of dust, mingling with the coppery scent of blood and the acrid stench of gunpowder. Cain was already moving before the engines fully powered down. His boots crunched over shattered stone and blood-soaked dirt, the ground littered with twisted bodies, some torn apart, others frozen in grotesque contortions, their eyes wide with terror. Hoshizawa. Cain's voice tore through the haze, raw and desperate. Stop this. This isn't you. For a moment, everything seemed to still. Hoshizawa stood at the brink of the gate, the air around him warping, bending unnaturally. Slowly, deliberately, he turned. Cain's breath caught in his throat. The man before him was a hollow echo of his former self. Gone were the sharp, calculating eyes of his mentor, now replaced by dark, sunken voids that seemed to drink in the light. His skin stretched thin over his bones, pale and waxen, like a corpse that refused to rot. But it was his aura that truly suffocated the air. Black tendrils of energy coiled and writhed around him like living smoke, pulsing with a slow, malignant rhythm. They didn't drift harmlessly. They clung to the ground and to the broken bodies nearby, like a predator tasting the air before a kill. Cain could feel it, a crushing weight pressing against his mind, clawing at the edges of his thoughts. You think this is madness? Hoshizawa's voice was soft, almost tender, but it grated like broken glass dragged over stone. No, Cain. He tilted his head slowly, his neck creaking with the motion. This is clarity. Cain forced a step forward, his fists clenched so tightly his claws bit into his palms. You're lost, he barked. Let me help you, before it's too late. Hoshizawa's lips peeled back into a grin too wide, unnatural, splitting his face nearly ear to ear. His teeth gleamed like shards of broken bone. Help me. The chuckle that followed was hollow, like wind whispering through an empty grave. Do not fear for me, Cain. His voice deepened, every word dripping with malice. Soon, you'll have a new purpose to follow. Humanity will no longer bow to death. The very ground trembled as the gate behind him pulsed, colors bleeding from its core. They will bow to me. Without another word, Hoshizawa turned, his form dissolving into the fractured light of the gate. And the world screamed.